You know.
It was funny because they don't understand that.
Okay.
Never saw them.
I would like to call the November 15, 2022 regular Board of Education meeting to order at 7 p.m. Roll call, please.
Gwen Bialik.
Here.
Barclay Butler.
Here.
David Costa. Stephanie Hausch.
Here.
Sebastian. Shelley Shaw.
Here.
Josie Shattuck.
Here.
Quorum present.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Cub Scout Pack 156 to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Color guard attention. For the audience, please rise. Color guard advance. Color guard, post the colors. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. On my honor, I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The audience may be seated.
Thank you to the pack, and you can have a cookie with your parents' permission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Well, we can come back to that. Mrs. Vogel, do you want to introduce our
Yeah.
our guests, and then we can go on to that presentation?
Yes, that sounds good.
Thank you.
I mean, then they'll go right into their presentation?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And we can hear from anybody else who wants to speak.
Okay, excellent. As everybody here knows, we added fifth grade to the junior high this year, and amongst many other wonderful things that are happening in fifth grade, we've enhanced our science curriculum to include STEM challenges. And so I invited fifth grade along with our family and consumer sciences teacher and our district curriculum coach to speak to you tonight about those. So please welcome Mrs. Bach, Mrs. Carlo, Ms. Hadel, Ms. Suit, Ms. Ogden, and Mrs. Rempert. Thank you.
Tonight we're sharing obviously our science and STEM and what we're doing in fifth grade, and we're really excited to share that with you. Thank you for having us.
Okay, so about a half a year ago, we were told that we were moving over to the junior high side, so that was really exciting to hear about. And so with that news came with the news of adding a new STEM curriculum to our fifth grade. So Ms. Joy Rumpert, our curriculum coach, came to us and said, since the fifth graders weren't going to be able to have STEM classes anymore, we were going to provide that opportunity still for them so they could have that hands-on learning experience. So with that came understanding what a scientist does in order to build and create new things. And so that's the engineering design process. So first you have to identify the problem and then do some research in order to find possible solutions for that. And then they get to test their solutions. And then with that, they get to see where they went wrong and how they can revise that. And then so here are our 4 different STEM challenges we're doing throughout the year. STEM challenge 1 we just completed. They got to create their own hydroponic gardens. And then the next one we're doing is for human footprint. So how humans affect the earth, and they get to test and see the negative effects of sea levels rising. And then our third one is interactions of matter, and then they're looking at different states of matter. And then our last one of the year is observing our sky, so how our planets and our sun work with gravity. And so they'll get to create an egg drop and see, they want their egg to travel from point A to point B safely, and with that comes gravity, right? So they'll have to determine the best solution for that. And then lastly, over the summer, we came together as a fifth grade team with Joy, and we built our hydroponic gardens. You'd think teachers would be able to follow directions easily, but it was actually quite difficult, and we definitely worked together. It was a good collaboration experience. So, yeah.
So as Ms. Pale mentioned, we have different STEM challenges that go along with the curriculum. We use the curriculum of STEM scopes. In this unit, we had the overarching question about how a garden can be self-sustaining and what a garden needs to be able to work well. So some topics that we covered in class were energy transfer, matter, energy in plants, food webs, food chains, matter cycles, and ecosystems. So the students really had to think about what they learned throughout the whole unit to be able to apply it to their summative assessment, as well as the hydroponic gardens that we use in class and their STEM challenge of building a hydroponic garden. I pulled a few different summative assessments from our classes, and you can see a few pictures on the right where they had to draw a picture of a self-sustaining garden using all the things that we learned and how the plants work with the animals and the sun and the water, and they had to apply what we learned to their summative and as well as their STEM challenge. So we wanted to extend their learning a little bit more. And so we had heard that MCC had hydroponic gardens up and running there. And when we contacted them, they actually had like a program starting for schools to come in. So we were able to go and take a campus tour, and the tour, the students were able to witness like simulations, like nursing, and we saw like physical therapy, so a little bit outside of the hydroponic system, but really cool for the kiddos to see. And then the student farm was outdoors, tunnels, super cool. The top agriculturalist was able to share with us how they keep the farm running, what it takes, and why it's important. And then finally, the students are able to go to the greenhouse where the hydroponic systems were up and running. And at that point, the students knew that they were creating their own self-sustaining gardens. So they were able to ask questions and generate ideas when they got back to school on how to create those gardens in our classroom and how to keep their hydroponic garden up and running in our classrooms.
In facts, we've taken a lot of the things that have been grown in the hydroponic gardens. We had an outdoor one early in the season before it started getting cold. And we harvested all those greens, and we did a whole lesson on how to wash them to make them safe to eat. And then we tasted them. And some of them were great, right? Some of them were not so great. But we figured, when we mix them in smoothies and things like that, they taste a little bit better. We had some herbs and things like that. We actually dried them in the facts classroom and used them in facts 1 and 2 classes when they did a spaghetti lab. They were able to use some of the basil and oregano that we had grown in the hydroponic gardens. We also spent another lesson learning all about microgreens and how packed they are with nutrition and how good they are for you, and learned a whole lot about microgreens. And then we did a garden journal where we were able to plan the gardens for each of the classrooms, and we learned about the difference between 0 shade, single shade, and double shade, and how that makes a difference on where you plant your gardens. And the kids were able to go in and make a plan for how they want their garden to look.
Okay, and so each of our classrooms actually have a 3-tiered gardening hydroponic system in our classrooms. The students are our gardeners. They are responsible for watering and giving the plants nutrients on a daily basis, which actually takes a lot of the workload off of us and responsibility more onto them. There are lights on the front of the tower. I don't know if you can see that, but they're blue when the water levels are good, and they're red and actually show how much water needs to be added. It actually indicates too when you put too much water in, so it really makes it easy for the students to take full responsibility on taking care of the garden. So we were mentioning that they're all involved in the gardening process. We have a ton of stuff to choose from as far as flowers, herbs, microgreens, lettuces, and there's even a lot of vegetables to choose from, like eggplant and cucumbers, so we can actually grow large crops as well. The students have been really excited about the hydroponic unit in general. Like Mrs. Fox said, we were able to take our learning to MCC, and do some research on building our own self-sustaining gardens, and they got to create a community garden in the classroom. And also, like Miss Ogden said, they get to cook with the food, harvest it, and use it in FACS class. So it's nice to be able to take our science out of the classroom and use it in other classrooms. We are extremely thankful and grateful for the new space and our hydroponic towers. And the students also wanted to express their gratitude.
Thank you, administrations, for always going above and beyond to ensure we get the best education. Thank all parents for your support.
Love you.
Thank you to the board. With your help, we've been able to become true scientists. It has been an amazing chance to grow our own garden. We thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. We love Appreciate you.
They actually are just genuinely excited about it. We didn't force them, but they love it. So thank you again for having us, and thank you.
It's wonderful.
Thank you again to the fifth grade team. I feel like this is quaint because I love science in fifth grade, so this is awesome. Thank you so much. At this point, I say members of the audience are encouraged to make comments and ask questions to the board consistent with board policy 24230. Please identify yourself and limit your presentation to 3 minutes. And no one signed in? Okay, moving on to the next thing. Administrative reports. Dr. View.
Yes, the administrative reports were included in your board packets. Administrative team should not have any questions from the board about anything in the admin report.
I had a question. Is the format of the parent-teacher conference is the same as usual, or is it a little different for the junior high? I don't know.
Probably should.
I should. But I was just wondering, like the open time, that's been the same as usual, everything the same?
I mean, traditionally 6th through 8th has always had walking conferences with some scheduled time for planned team conferences. 5th grade has scheduled individual conferences, given their smaller dedicated roster.
Anybody else on the board have any questions?
The Panther hangout, I was just kind of wondering how it seems like that went well since it was the first go at it and stuff like that. I mean, was there good attendance with that or?
Yeah, we broke it up with 5th, 6th grade, and then 7th and 8th grade had the later time, and I would say there was a tremendous turnout for 5th and 6th grade. They were having a blast from the dodgeball to the dancing to the craft sections, pumpkin painting and cookie decorating. The attendance was a little lower for the 7th and 8th grade, but usually their turnout is higher towards the end of the year when they have 8th grade has a more dedicated experience just to that grade level, the 8th grade dance. But I thought it was very well attended. I had almost 10 staff attending to help supervise that. The student council really took the lead in organization, so I have to give our student council advisors and student council members props for that. Our PTO helped to contribute to all of the glow or neon aspect in the junior high gym, so it was truly a collaborative effort to make happen. But yeah, it was an exciting event for our student body.
Anybody else?
That's mine. I have 2 really favorite days in the year. One, my birthday. Yeah, it's already come and gone too. The second one is National Chocolate Cake Day coming up in January, one of my favorite days. And I was asked today, I was having a good day. Today is for me is like the worst. First snow of the year is one of the worst. But it is also School Board Member Appreciation Day. So from that standpoint, it is a good day. We have 5 board members present tonight, 2 on work trips. And I wanted to take a few moments to say thank you to the Board of Education. Those who have been on the board for many years, those who have been on for a couple of years, those who might be running for the school board. It is sometimes a thankless job because there's no, you get to come once a month and sit here in front of the audience and answer questions and pass policy and we do budgetary things. And occasionally we have fun activities like tonight when 5th grade shows up and puts on a fantastic presentation for us. But most of the times it's a thankless job and a necessary job. And it is National Appreciation Day for school members. So thank you very much. We have a little certificate for each one of you and a very small gift for each one of you. Congratulations. Thank you. And we do want to have absolutely. We want to do a photo. Right, Joe?
Yes.
Before you leave. Well, you don't always get a lot of props. And so tonight you are getting one. In addition to the certificates, we have some lovely gifts that we'll get to when we leave tonight. We also have an award for Mrs. Shaw. The School Board Association has professional development for school board members and school boards. Mrs. Shaw recently earned Distinguished Board Member Award from the School Board Association. She already knew this was coming, but she didn't have a certificate until now. So thank you, Mrs. Shaw, for that. I'm looking forward to chocolate cake day in January. Just put that out there, Joan.
Okay.
I do have several things that I want to talk about tonight in my report. And the first one's on the screen, the Illinois report card. As I mentioned a month ago, October is the month where the State Board of Education puts out the annual report card of all school districts across the state. And when you take a look at the raw report cards in the board pack, it's like 170 pages long of line after line of data. It's really cumbersome and awkward to look at. So what we've done tonight for you is kind of broken down into 13 slides that kind of highlight some of the things we want to talk about. So the purpose of the presentation is we're looking at the pre-pandemic, the last full school year pre-pandemic, the 2018-2019 school year. During 2019-20, schools interrupted through COVID. We had everyone went home in March of 2020. We didn't come back in. We had no testing that year. We came back in the 2021 school year. We had testing, but it didn't count according to ISB. And so the 21-22 school year, last school year, is the most recent round of testing. We had a full regular school year with testing. So we're going to make some comparisons from the 2018-19 school year to the 21-22 school year on a variety of characteristics. Change here. So here they are. All of the data that I'm presenting tonight from regarding our school is on the Illinois report card. You can also find the statewide data there. We're looking at student achievement, financial information, student demographics, and district characteristics. And one of the things that we look at when we look at the raw data, keep in mind the raw data that is produced by ISB is information. You can take use it as you so fit and look at. The scores are the individual student scores that you get for your individual student can be very helpful. They give you a nice breakdown about what your students' skills are in certain areas in math and English primarily, but also the science assessment. But it's really hard to get a measure because it's a different set of kids. The 2018-19 student population is different from the population we had in 21-22. Kids come, kids go, fluctuations happen. And so it's really hard to measure and look at those things over different years. Third grade kids in 2018-19 were not third grade in 21-22. But you can look at percentile rankings, okay? So when you look at percentile rankings, the easiest analogy for that is like when you go to when you have a baby, you go to the pediatrician, they say your child is 8 pounds, 5 ounces. That puts them in the 38th percentile of all babies. You can kind of get a measurement of where your child is. My child at 50%, right in the middle, above, below. So those are the numbers we're going to look at when comparing data across 2 different school years, because it is different students and different years. All right, so I've got 4 slides, and the first one's on student achievement. So I'll kind of go through this. This looks at all of the data. The ELA proficiency, that's English language arts. Math proficiency, we have participation, we have growth percentile, and then 8th graders passing algebra. Those are probably the key ones to look at when you look at the school report card. The pink scores on the screen, on my screens are pink, those are the state value. So that's where if you look all the students across the state, 37.6% were proficient in English. That sets the benchmark as the 50th percentile. Okay? The 2019 district value, 64.3, that's where Prairie Grove was. That put us in the 93rd percentile. That's really 64% proficient. Maybe it doesn't sound great. You know, on our grading scale, a 64% would not get you a great score. But when you look at comparatively where we are with other school districts across the state, 93rd percentile is pretty good compared to the state averages. Okay. 2022, the state value dropped to 28.5. That becomes the 50th percentile in 22. The district's value, 47.6%, 86th percentile. There is a decrease, but it is not unexpected. We expected to see a shift to the left of students, regressing during the COVID years. When you look at that compared to statewide, we're still well above state average scores and that median score. Math proficiency, participation, we're always in the 98, 99 percentile. When it comes to that, we try to get all the students to take the test. Look at the growth percentile, what students are growing. Statewide, 78th percentile in 2019, 74th percentile in 2022. In English, math, 51, 89% in 2022. A giant gain there in math. 8th graders passing algebra, 69th percentile, 68th percentile. Pretty close. If you look at financial information, we have average teacher salary, average admin salary, tax rates, EAV per pupil, instructional spending per pupil, operational spending. There's nothing in here about test scores. It's just financial data of where the district ranks against state value, district value in 2019 and 2022, the percentiles. And you can see from 2019 to 2022, we were up, we were down. There are some inferences to be drawn from this, and we'll look at those toward the end of the presentation. We have demographics. We see that racial makeup of students from white, Black, Hispanic, Asian, English learners, IEPs, low income, homelessness. And this doesn't show you any achievement scores, just where those students are in the district and what percentage you have and how you rate from 2019 to 2022. District characteristics, enrollment, attendance, mobility, truancy, class size, teachers with advanced degrees, teacher retention. The same set of values here. The statewide value in 2019, statewide value in 22, the district values from 2019 to 2022, and whether it's a positive or negative growth again. So let me stop right there on the 4 tables with the data and ask, are there any questions from any of the board members about any of the specific data?
The state value.
Yes.
That's based on public schools only, correct?
Yes. Again, the pink score represents the 50th percentile. The green is our ranking in our percentile. I will point out truancy, is a ginormous jump. We went from 0% truancy in 2019 to 7.5. There was a definition change of truancy. It used to be 10%. Now it's 5. Okay, so there was a change in the definition. So naturally, the state value went way up. Our value went way up. It's something that we are constantly challenged with, is making sure kids get in school, the students have more opportunities to be away. The state gave 5 mental health days as well to students, which helps skew those scores and those rankings.
But why would they count those days as part of being truant? They're environmental.
No, I'm just saying there's days you're out of school. I'm just saying that change the definitions between 19 and 22. not saying that's not part of truancy, but definitions have changed. Things are allowable in 2022 that they weren't allowable in 2019. That's just an example. When you look at the statewide proficiency shift. Now, I want to say this, proficiency is a definition that the state uses, but they don't describe what that definition is. Okay? We have no idea what the actual proficient range is from the state. We just say that they tell us what's proficient and what isn't. And there was a shift to the left in 2022. Here's a little chart. You can see the blue and the gray. This would be your bell curve. Your normal bell curve, right in the middle, your peak should be around the 50th percentile. And you can see in 2019, the state was a little to the left of that, about 40 percentile. And that dashed gray line, that's where Prairie Grove was. Beyond the 60th percentile ELA. Excuse me. In 2022, there was a shift to the left. The state went to the left, and so did the district. So does that mean our kids are not as intelligent? No. That means there were some learning lapses between 2019 and 2022 that we are making up for now, and that is evident statewide. But you can still see that Prairie Grove students are well above the median when it comes to English language arts proficiency from grades 3 through 8. That's where they're tested. In math, the same thing. That again, the curve went to the left, but the district is still well above the state median range. The state's down here in the 20, just about 20 percentile. We are much higher than that now. We're 30%. Doesn't seem like much, but when you compare us to other districts, we're in a much better position. Does that mean we have problems? Of course not. We still have concerns about individual students and grade levels and the concepts they're struggling on. We kind of look at that statewide testing as a whole picture, and not necessarily focus on individual grade levels or individual classes. There are some key takeaways. If you look at all the data, PG experienced a regression in ELA and math, so that would be, I'd call that a negative, but I think that's statewide. Compared to the entire state, we're in the upper 15th percentile in English proficiency and upper 30th percentile in math proficiency, which is a huge positive for us. We made some math curriculum changes, which we hope to start bearing fruit on this year's assessment. Statewide instructional and operational spending per pupil has increased at a higher rate than ours has. I'm not saying ours went up, but at a lower rate than what went up across the state. We have a high number of students in IEPs, so that's we're above the state averages in that. Our district continues to climb in enrollment. Class size remains stable, but below state averages. The truancy definition has changed, which has resulted in increases locally and statewide. Those are my takeaways from. Other questions from the board?
Is this kind of what we anticipated post-COVID? Or
I don't know that what I anticipated post-COVID. I know that when I'm in the hallways and the classrooms and I see teaching and learning going on, I see the same effort in 22 and 23 that I did in 2018-19. Am I shocked that we had a slight regression? No. I mean, we all admitted that remote learning was not the same as being live and in person with our teachers, and we don't want to go back to that. Do you expect our shift to go back to the right after this year's assessments as an overall school district? If it's not, then I'll be disappointed.
And all the data we are seeing is all students, so it's like anyone with an IEP. So
Absolutely.
and when we are a smaller school district, this population can really impact one way or the other too, right? When we're looking at data. So when you guys are looking further deeper into it, you'll look at all the subset data to see where we can make improvements and changes to help.
We do look at subset data, but when we're looking at data to help drive instruction, we're not always looking at this data, the state data, because it comes in so late. We look at our assessments that we're doing on a regular basis in school now. So we did an assessment at the start of the school year, and it's a measure of where the students were at that point in time in August, September. So then we take that information and design the groups. If a student is struggling at that point in time, what kind of assistance we're going to give them, what level of tier intervention we're going to provide that student who's low, who's in the middle, and who's high, and we use that to drive instruction on a daily basis. We look at this sort of a global perspective, where are we as an overall, and maybe what are some things that we can look at and tweak district-wide. But when it comes to individual students, we look at the data that we're using on a regular basis.
Like the math test.
MAP's one of those assessments. FastBridge is one of those assessments. The things that teachers do in the classroom are also highly effective. Unfortunately, the data that the state gives us, once we take those assessments in April, those results don't come back to us till the summertime. And so we don't really drive instruction with it. It is what it is. It's the data.
Were the math curriculum changes that were made, were those K through 8? Or were they made across the board or just
K5.
K through 8?
Construction building project, we are 99% finished on that wing. We have 2 items left on the punch list to get done. They'll be done over one of the breaks this winter. I do want to have a conversation with the board about solar. We've discussed this a couple of different times about solar options. I had 3 vendors that that reached out to me, and I reached out to them and had discussions about solar options on our property, whether it be for a community-wide solar project, which is a larger project, or one just for the school. One of them decided to drop out and not send us a proposal. We have 2, one from Green Key Solar and one from Illinois Energy Consortium, Future Green. Of the 2 of them, I've done some research on districts where they've worked. I think we should consider moving forward with the Illinois Energy Consortium Future Green. They are a school board association endorsed vendor. I have looked at their other districts. I know people in other districts where they have worked currently and in the process of working right now. Their project they have proposed to us is a solar field that would be to the south of our track on the farmland that we own. And here's a picture of it up on the screen. That field then should produce about 90% of the electric energy for our building for us to use, which would then obviously offset our utility cost. Currently, lights, air conditioning, all that, there takes electricity to run all the systems that we have. Our heat is gas fired, but it does take electricity to make things run. They're interested in coming out and presenting to the full board. I can't speak about solar PV arrays and everything. I can tell you that this particular program that we're looking at is 0 cost upfront to the school board. So they're not going to charge us anything to do the project. We are expected to. It is a 25-year program. It's anticipated that we would see savings in the neighborhood of about $1.2 million over 25 years on energy costs. And that is at the 90% level. We can build it bigger than that. But right now, we don't feel that the ComEd power line structure, their system here is able to take a lot more back. So that maybe if we net metered, if we did a 20 megawatt solar field, the ComEd might not give us all the credits back because we don't have the infrastructure to do that right now. Even though we have the power line and substation right here, when you look at their map, they don't have the infrastructure here to have us produce more electricity than we need and for them to buy it back at a good rate to make it profitable for us and for Future Green. Do you want to have a full conversation with the folks from Future Green at a board discuss this.
Why did you choose this one specifically over the other one?
I have felt like we have a higher level of confidence in this particular group. They have more projects currently going in school districts across the state. It also has more value to us based on their estimates, higher value to us than the other company. The other company is not giving us nearly the amount of credits in their particular proposal. They were looking at 20 years, 581,000. Whereas the other company says we should be able to generate about 1.2 million in savings. So looking at it from the pure financial standpoint.
Okay. And you also mentioned that nothing up front. But what about in the future?
Both of them are nothing up front. Nothing up front, no cost.
How about maintaining?
No.
So
it's all
25
net.
years?
25 years.
So like you say, we had a hailstorm, all that stuff that we have.
They own the equipment. They're the ones who are responsible for the maintenance.
But they just want our land.
Yeah, they want the place to put it.
And this is at least, this is one that was $1 a year.
Correct.
And is it just, it's just for us, just for the school, it's
It's
not
just
the
for the school
community,
district,
right?
correct.
So if ComEd decides in the future, then
We could expand.
we can expand.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe.
The benefit of doing the smaller one still allows our property to be farmed. So we still have, an agreement for the farmland to be farmed. They can still do that. They would lose some acreage for the array, obviously, but they still be able to farm around it. So it's kind of a win-win. If you do the full community build out, it's gonna take almost 20 acres of the land to do that.
But we can't
How much
do it
is-
because ComEd.
ComEd can't absorb that power. Yes.
And how many acres is this?
Let's see if we put that. It's less than 5.
Okay.
I don't think it says,
It
it doesn't say, but it's less than 5. In that ballpark.
How far away is this from the school itself? Well, I see where it is, but I mean, can kids get to it?
It would have a fence around it. They got a fence around it.
Okay, because these things can get hot and stuff.
Yes, it'd be protected.
Okay.
I would be interested in having something. It's not a commitment.
Correct. It's not a commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
that's it.
I will reach out this week and get them here to make presentations to the board.
Was this the one that included learning opportunities for the students at the end of the day? Or was that the other one?
They will. Yes.
They have a-
Correct.
Because I know we toured a school and they actually had on their monitors how much energy was being created and everything, so the kids can actually engage with.
We'll be able to do that as well.
Never science.
And does it provide, and I'm sure they'll address this in a presentation, but redundancy in the situation like the one that occurred last fall, like does it fail over to if we lose comment?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're still be connected to our lines.
Yeah.
This would be what we'd be using, like when power and sun's
Yes.
on, we'll be drawing directly. And if there's a power outage, we would go right back.
So that would
instantly to ComEd.
alleviate those
Absolutely.
issues. and-
Yes. Unless
That's
ComEd's out as well, in which case they're all out, so.
Right.
But
But
ComEd
if the
could be
sun's
out,
up,
then
the
the
sun will
sun's
still
out,
be up, it's
we're
still
also
going.
using
Correct.
it.
Sun's out.
So it's independent of comment, so it can run without
That's
comment.
my understanding.
Yeah.
And it doesn't store, it's just
Right, we're not storing, we're just creating.
creating.
Is that an option to look into?
Storing with batteries? I'm sure it could be. I didn't have that conversation with them. Don't know why, I don't have a place to house those batteries.
Well, I know, but most solar places, I mean, systems do have batteries, but I mean, you're not always gonna be sunny.
That's correct.
You're in the winter time. So it may make sense to look into storing possibly,
That's why they tap into the regular ComEd and then you just kind of say.
unless it's cheaper to have batteries versus grabbing it
So,
back in comment.
something.
But I'm interested.
Okay.
I will get them here.
Thank you.
Moving on, we don't have any old business. New business. So, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes regular session minutes from October 8th, bills payable, treasurer's report, annual statement of affairs, and disposition of district property.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Barclay Butler,
Yes.
Stephanie Hausch,
Yes.
Josie Shattuck,
Yes.
Gwen Violet,
Yes.
Kashali Shaw,
Yes.
motion carried.
May I have a motion to approve the property tax relief grant program application?
So moved.
Any discussion, Dr. Reed?
Yes, so the last several years, the property tax relief grant program has been offered to school districts. It requires board approval, is why it's on your agenda tonight. The deadline for that is in January. Since we're having a conversation tonight about the levy, we might as well go ahead and approve our application. Do I anticipate us being successful? No, we're not high enough on the list, I don't believe. But we need to make the effort. If it will allow us to lower our tax bills, that would be outstanding.
Anybody got any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. May I have a motion to approve resolution 2022-18 regarding this estimated amount necessary to be levied for the 2022 tax year?
So moved.
Second. Discussion.
All right, tax levy presentation. Per board policy, the tax levy that we are discussing tonight, which will be formalized next month, is used to support the 23-24 school year. District 46 falls under the property tax limitation extension law, the PTEL rules, which caps the extension at either the increase of 5% or CPI, whichever is less. The levy process, of course, is based on property values in the district. But those values are not determined until the springtime, so it's a little bit of quasi-reverse process. Here's the process for going into it. We have the assessments, of course, of the all the property is discovered and listed and appraised based on the market values. There's a review of those assessments done by the board of review. We'll have, if you're dissatisfied with what your tax situation is, you can always appeal to the review board or to the property tax review board or circuit court. There's the equalization process that's done in Springfield, which brings everything into what's called the equalized assessed evaluation based on where you are in the state. So in theory, it equalizes property values from Chicago down to Cairo. And of course, then there's the tax levy process that we're engaged in tonight. The code requires us to have at least 20 days between the time when we present this formally before you take formal action on it. So tonight, between now and our December board meeting, we have 28 days. We do have enough days between those two meetings. If a truth in taxation hearing is going to be held, it must be no more than 14 days, no less than 7 days before the December 13th meeting. That would be somewhere between the 29th of November and the 6th of December. If we're going to have a truth in taxation hearing, and I put that on the docket because I do believe this year we'll be having a truth in taxation hearing. The tax extension is what the levy, what the county ends up putting on the property tax bills. They collect those monies. The bills go out in March, April. They collect those in June, September, and distribute them to all the taxing bodies then. Once the school year begins. So here's sort of the different timelines of where we are. Tonight, we're looking at the levy. Next month, we'll adopt the certificate of levy and file it with the clerk's office. In January, the CPI number for 22 is released. That'll be used for the following year. In February, we look at budget planning and a 5-year forecast. In March, we determine staffing for needs for the next year. EAV is finally released in March and April. The clerk's office then extends tax information in May and June. We do our budget projections in July, presentation in September. For reference, this is the 30-year historical perspective of CPI. You can see that black line on there, that's 2.4, 2.5. That's the average has been, the 2.32 it says. Never have we been at 5% in the last 30 years, as you know. This last year, we've had some hyperinflation. The actual CPI rate was over 8% in December. So that by law, it's capped at 5. All right, truth in taxation. Anytime a taxing body is going to consider extending a request greater than 5% of the prior year, it's required to have a truth in taxation hearing. That notice must get published in the newspaper. It's going to be more than 5% of the previous year's extension. Here is the recommendation that we have for you right now. Last year's extension was $11.9 million. The 22 projected levy to current homeowners is an additional $511,000. To new property owners, $296,000, for a total of 6.78%. That projected levy is $12.7 million. That's how much we actually expect to receive. Generally, we add a balloon protection on there. This year we put that at 2.25%. We do that because the county has not yet finalized all of the values. Plus, there still could be some new property that comes on the books between now and then. And that is to protect us if the number goes up, if the EAV goes up from the county that they've already presented to us. The 12.7 is the number we are expecting to get, but we're going to ask for 13. And it will get reduced down to whatever the values are that the county comes up with. Question, Parker? We do have an alternate recommendation. If you do not want to have a truth in taxation hearing, we can alter our levy down to under the 5% mark, which would be $12,518,000 or 4.99%. That does cut the potential levy on the property owners. It still maintains the same level of new property. So we are allowed under the PTEL to capture all of the tax revenue on new property that gets established during that year. So that number remains the same at $291,000. And the balloon protection there would only be $13,000, which would keep us below the 5% threshold. We mentioned the property tax relief grant. It was $4.49% million allocated for that. Grant, that application will be completed tomorrow after the resolution we've already passed tonight. Just some information about that tax relief grant. We're currently ranked 68 statewide on that tax rate. The cut line is projected to be at number 32. So we are a ways to go before we get to that. Any questions on the levy recommendation from the board before I go on to the last couple slides? Sure.
So why 9%? Because we said PTEL is maxed at 5%. What am I missing?
You're allowed to capture all new property though as well. So you go 5% up to 5% on existing property. And the new property, you're allowed to capture it all. So when CPI is above 5%, if you keep it at 5%, you're not going to capture any new property values.
If they're there.
If they're there. And
Why is the percent change, like the 2.49 to new property owners? Shouldn't it be?
that's just the percentage of the levy. Yeah, that's just the percentage of the levy. They'll still get the full rate on those properties, but the percentage of the increase on those 2.49%. It's just a mathematical. It's not. They're not getting a break.
Their tax rate is the
Tax
same.
The tax rate is the same.
Yeah.
Correct. That's just the value of it at that tax rate.
Well, like what's, you have a recommended and a not recommended. Go over more why
So
not
if you-
the recommended.
If you don't want to have, if you want to keep up your levy below the 5% mark, okay, and not have to do the taxation hearing, then we can go to the alternate.
So is that 4.9 versus 5? Are we going above?
The requested levy is at 9%. That's this one.
Yeah.
Okay? That requires a truth in taxation hearing. So what that means is we're posting an ad in the paper. We'll have a hearing prior to the next school board meeting at 6:45, in which people can tell us how wrong it is that we're asking for more than 5% on the levy. But in reality, you're only going to get what you ask for. So if the property values, once they're finalized, are at or less than what the county has already told us, the property tax, the current property owners from last year are looking at a 4.29%
It's the balloon, Shelley.
We want
It's-
that. We need-
The balloon is there in case we can grab it, I guess you could say more than anything.
You're not gonna get it unless the property values increase between now and when the county finalizes.
Correct.
We put it on there to say, just in case they have new
Right.
property they've missed, or if they change housing prices, you still have the opportunity to get that levy at that amount.
Okay, but so like last year, that green 4.29, what was that last year? Approximately.
1.6, 1.7,
That's a big,
because CPI was at 1.4.
No, that's all with CPI.
It has to do with CPI. Tax cap.
If the values don't go up, we pretty much don't even worry about going over the 5. That's really what it comes down to.
Correct.
The balloon is what's causing us to go above that 5.
And that, we want that because otherwise we're not gonna get everything that we should be getting.
And as everyone, the cost of everything is going up. Okay, the cost to run the school is going up. You have higher costs for food, you have higher costs for fuel, you have higher costs for electricity. Everyone's feeling that right now. Okay, the school is no different. This is your only opportunity to help that situation by asking for the full amount of your levy for next year. If you don't ask for it, you're never gonna get it. And once you don't get it, because you're capped at CPI or less, you lose it forever.
that's, so to be more explicit about it, we need this money because of all inflation on all of our services, like, plus what you just said, the food,
Yeah.
the gas, to run the school.
So,
And that, all of,
Here's the great example. So we have an item on the agenda later tonight on our school buses. Okay? For years, we've seen minimal increases in our leases. We lease buses from Midwest Transit on 2 years rotation. Due to the current market structure, our lease on the buses that we currently are leasing, not brand new buses, but the current buses who are going to be in years 5 and 6 of service, is up 69% over last lease. You have no control over it. I was shocked. But we don't have a choice. If you don't want to have buses, you're going to have buses. You're going to pay the lease. In order to pay the lease, you have to levy more than you want to levy in order to pay that cost.
and that's what we need to be able to explain to our taxpayers, because, right, they're gonna be like, oh my God, you're raising it up very high on us, but they need to understand that we need that to be our books. I mean, that's what is, people usually come to us when we don't do this much and get mad at us.
Yes.
And now we need to be able to explain to people that there are bills to be paid. And this is why we.
Yeah, so is there a presentation prior to the hearing where they speak that breaks down kind of at a granular level, things we're seeing a cost increase on? So that, we're being fully transparent, like this is why this is happening.
I can create that presentation.
I say, can you do that at the?
Absolutely.
Because this is a big.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think it would maybe, I don't know that it will ease their frustrations, but just
I'm
to,
sure it won't.
no, but just,
Well, like you said, so we're very transparent, so they know exactly where,
It's a big
why,
It's a huge jump. Keep in mind, we may not get all that
we may not
money.
get it all either, yeah.
That the money is sitting in this balloon protection.
Most of it.
All of it is.
Oh.
$220,000 is the difference. We're at 268 in the run.
What's kicking you over the normal thing is that CPI was up 5%.
Which we don't have anything to do with,
No,
so
you have
it's
no control over
nothing,
that.
yeah.
And we do again have another $6 million in new property. Okay, and so if you want to capture that property and get it in your base, you have to do it here. And that's an extra 2.5%.
What are other school districts in the area doing?
I don't know of anyone in the area who's not asking for the full levy. I've asked. I don't have anyone who's not asking for the full levy. In the immediate area. Okay. So the last few slides, there was a new Public Act 102, 1102. that requires districts to disclose their cash reserves for all fund balances in their operational levy. We were having these kind of conversations, so we'll disclose it here tonight during the levy presentation, disclose it next year when we do our budget. So our June 30th cash balances, 6.4 million in education, 1.9 in O&M, 760 in transportation. Obviously, capital projects at $9 million. That's the bonds. As of June 30th, we still have a lot of bills to pay for the building. We're also required to disclose what the obligations are that are secured with those funds. We have almost $11 million in debt from the bonds of 2013 and the bonds of 2021. That money is included in those cash reserves. The copy lease and the current bus lease, $866,000. That's the obligation we're supposed to disclose under the new law. That information is also available on the district webpage in our audit. Questions from the board? So again, the recommendation is to take the tentative levy at its full amount. And we'll have our truth and taxation posting next at the end of the month, 1st of December. We'll have that hearing in December, and we'll finalize the levy and send it to the county.
Anybody have any questions?
Roll call vote, please.
Stephanie Hausch,
Yes.
Josie Shattuck,
Yes.
Gwen Bilek,
Yes.
Barclay Butler,
I just want to say, we're basing this yes on what you thought was the best idea, correct?
Correct.
Yes, recommendation, yes. Yes.
thank you. David Kashali Shaw,
Yes.
motion carried.
May I have a motion to approve school maintenance project grant FY23 round 1?
So moved.
Discussion?
So every year or so, the state provides $50,000 in a matching grant for maintenance projects. The deadline for that is this week. So we do have some projects on our health, life, safety list that we're going to do this summer in the elementary building. And so part of it is brickwork around the gymnasium and on the north wing. So the ask is that we approve the maintenance grant. We were going to do probably $207,000 worth of brickwork. The state's going to pay $50,000 of that and match grant.
Is it like how you showed on the other one, when you have to 32 people get it, or do you?
No, everyone gets it. If you apply for it, money's there for you. We're going to be in the second tier behind emergencies. Falls under health, life, safety, so we'll be in the second tier of funding. It's almost guaranteed to be funded. They have not funded that. That's not got unfunded yet. It's out there.
Roll call vote?
Josie Shattuck,
Yes.
Gwen Bilek,
Yes.
Barclay Butler,
Yes.
Stephanie Hausch,
Yes.
Kashali Shaw,
Yes.
motion carried.
May I have a motion to approve the Midwest Transit Equipment Bus Lease Extension in the amount of $219,250?
So moved.
Second.
So as mentioned a few moments ago, normally we looking at our bus lease in February. WS has informed us that if we don't take action tonight, the prices are going to go up. Probably a good time to get to February. So this is our current buses. Normally we get new buses from a neighboring district. They'd be in years 3 and 4. We're going to lease the same buses from Midwest. The cost has gone up. The maintenance has gone up from $129,000 a year to $219,000, 69.5% year-over-year variance on that bus lease. We have 1 year left on our 3 33-passenger gas buses, the ones we use for early childhood, and of course we own 2 Dodge Caravans that we use for individual student transportation. So this lease is only the 10 large buses, the 77-passenger diesel buses. We're getting close. Right? With our enrollment going back up now over 800, we're getting closer to needing to add a bus to that. We don't yet. But if we do get another 40 or 50 students again next year, we may have to add a bus after the fact that this lease goes into effect. We'll see.
Why 69.5%?
Because they can.
Have we looked at other companies?
They don't have any buses.
Really?
We've reached out. there's only 2 or 3 companies that have buses. And we're way down on their list. If we're gonna get buses, we're way down on their list because they already have existing customers that are getting those buses. There's not that many being manufactured this year. When I talked to the rep, they said their order was cut by 1,000 units from the manufacturer. They're just not producing as many of them. Therefore, they don't have a lot of units to go into service. So other districts are getting feeling the same pain that we're gonna feel.
And there's no protection.
Have
They can do this to schools.
Unfortunately, they can't at this point.
What happens if we did less than 2 years? If it is inflation, whatever it is, I don't know. What happens if we did a 1 year? Look at it again, you said prices are gonna go up, right? They
I expect them to go up.
probably not 69%.
Could be more than that. I don't know.
I don't think we have a choice. Which is horrible.
Yes, it is. You could go out for bids. You could do an RFP to the other companies on a lease. You could go out for bids to buy buses. That's going to be really expensive, more so than this lease. I wouldn't recommend that.
And we've tried in the past to look at use code, whatever, five and nothing, can't do anything with anybody. The cost. We're stuck.
It's a very bitter bill.
Are those the only 2 lengths of leases they offer? Like if we said, what about a 4-year lease? Would they, you know what I mean?
The farther out you go, the higher the maintenance part of that lease is going to be,
Okay.
because as they get older, they get more wear and tear, more things break down. I would like to stay with the 2 years and see where we are in a year and a half from now. See if there's anything else we can do.
Okay.
Instead of locking it for a longer period of time. I'm hopeful that the economy changes and the inflation rates change and things get back to more normalized in a couple of years. And this can come way down. Hopefully, or we'll look in a different direction.
Plastic buses.
Versus steel. Something.
Okay. It's unfortunate that we have to do a more call.
Josie Shattuck,
Yes.
Gwen Bialik,
Yes.
Barclay Butler,
Yes.
Stephanie Hausch,
Yes.
Kashali Shaw,
Yes.
motion carried.
Okay. May I have a motion to adjourn at 8:02 PM?
So moved. That's right.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for attending, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, good job.
So fun. It's just a highway.
Would someone like a picture